is MC Fireside Chats, a weekly show featuring conversations with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and outdoor hospitality experts who share their insights to help your business succeed. Hosted by Brian Searl, the founder and CEO of Insider Perks, and powered by insights from Modern Campground, the most innovative news source in the industry.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks / Modern Campground. Super excited to be here with you for our second, I think, to last episode of 2024. It's strange looking back on this, guys. I know you're special guests here. You've only been here for one episode. But like, I started this in 2020-ish, I think, during the pandemic. And I mean, almost every week for 4 years. I don't know what in the world people still watch for. Obviously, it's you guys, Brett and Laura, the special guests, not me. But just interesting to think about that stuff and how far the show has come since then. We just started it as a COVID update thing. Like, that's literally how the whole thing was born, with like let's pay attention to what's happening with COVID. So,
was much needed then.
Yeah. I mean, you know, good things come out of it, right? So, but Laura, you want to introduce yourself first, and then we'll have Brett?
Sure. Laura Mooney, co-owner of the Mohicans Treehouse Resort in mid-central Ohio between Cleveland and Columbus. We have 9 tree houses. We're building a 10th tree house right now. We also have ground cabins and a couple Airbnb like country homes that are part of our inventory, but open 365 days a year. Yeah, just, you know, day by day, getting through it.
365 days a year. I have a Christmas song I was telling you about before the show that we generated with AI about campgrounds, but it's about a seasonal campground, so I don't know if it's going to help you.
All right. It's
That's
not
kind of sarcastic and funny, but yeah.
all right.
Brett.
Yep. My name is Brett Bullock. I'm the owner of Pine Harbor Campground in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. So we are seasonal. We're open from the beginning of May to the middle of October. We have 65 campsites. 25 of those are seasonal. So they come and set up at the beginning of the season. They stay here. They keep their campers here over the winter and come back year after year. That's great. So then that leaves the rest for, RVs, tents. And so, we're a private campground where people come on the weekend. Some people stay for a week or longer. It's a nice area in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, nice and wooded. We're kind of that smaller type of campground. We don't have like an arcade or a pool. So we have a very unique clientele that are here for, kind of the traditional version of camping.
Awesome. I'm excited to explore more about that with you. People may or may not be watching the show now. I just got a notice from my team. Literally, I just put it in Slack that Meta is currently experiencing a major outage. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Messenger, and WhatsApp are all down, apparently.
Wow.
So that's fun. But we're on YouTube for whoever watches there. And maybe it's working. I don't know, but that's currently what it is. So that's, great timing, Meta. Thanks, Zuckerberg. But yeah, let's talk about, there's lots of things going on. The holidays are coming up. Let's talk about, I think first, maybe how did your seasons go at your respective properties? Because there's been a lot of change, right? We went through, the last few years, depending on how long you guys have both owned your property for several years.
Yeah. 13.
So it's been, we saw the ups of COVID and outdoor hospitality and everybody getting outside. Then we saw the moderating, and then we saw the maybe downs, and then who knows what we're going to see now. So how did it go for you guys? Who wants to start? Brett, you want to start?
So I've been the owner of this campground, Pine Harbor Campground, for 6 years now. So that was kind of starting out was COVID, which was by far the highest for us. Luckily we had updated our Wi-Fi system so people were able to work from their camper. And that was huge. We had multiple people here for multiple weeks, months at a time. So that was the highest. And, we actually, when I bought the place, it was 45 campsites. And now we're up to 65. We added that in. So
Congrats.
Obviously that was a huge bump in revenue. And we've continuously grown since 2019 was my first year owning. So that has been a continuous growth in revenue, and now we've kind of plateaued just as we've kind of reached our maximum potential, which is fine. But this year in particular, I think, was the main question at hand. This year was kind of rough for us, actually. Between May and June in northern Wisconsin, there was a lot of rain. Minnesota was actually flooded out. And people,
Oh, I didn't know that.
we
Like
get a lot of,
obviously North Carolina you hear about and the hurricanes and the weather damage down there, but I didn't hear about Minnesota.
Yeah, and so we're about an hour from the border, and a lot of our guests come from Minnesota, and there were bridges out; they couldn't travel, and obviously no
Wow.
camp when it's rainy. So that
I
had
wonder why we don't hear more about this stuff, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you hear about all the national stuff, like the big hurricanes, and maybe I'm just not reading the right places, but you would think that there would be some resource for the travel industry as a whole to reference that from a data standpoint. Maybe we just need to cover more of it on Modern Campground, but sorry, continue.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a weather-dependent industry, so that happens. The majority of our reservations are made ahead of time, but you get those cancellations, and we have our cancellation policy in place for just to protect ourselves.
For sure.
But that's just sort of the risk you take with a business like this.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it's different is what I'm trying to say when bridges wash out and stuff like that,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And also like from a two-sided standpoint, one is like I would like to know that, and lots of people would like to know that who own campgrounds who maybe aren't in Minnesota and didn't read about it or aren't close, right?
Sure.
But two, like we need to let guests know that yes, the bridges are out, but you could maybe get to it a different way, or like you can still come and have fun, or we're fine over here, or so I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that does just kind of come down to the business owner themselves. That there's that marketing outreach, social media. You make your own. You send out your own information and those types of things that you have to be proactive and just say, yeah, we're open. There's still activities to do. For our location, Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, we have a lot of tourism attractions where you can camp. Maybe it's raining at the campground, but there's still a lot of indoor activities to do in the area. So again, that's sort of on the business owner to advertise that, to say, yeah, there's still stuff to do.
So walk us through the founding of Pine Harbor here, right? So 2019, you come in, you buy a property, you probably got a good deal at it, comparatively speaking, right? Versus if somebody had known whatever was coming in 2020. I feel like you're probably not walking into this thing like, I even have a pandemic in my vocabulary. What is that word? And then everything changes, right? So you had plans going in. Let's start there. What were your plans going in before everything happened?
So I actually bought the campground in 2018. My wife and I had the plan we wanted to start an event venue. So we were looking at, we were living in Madison at the time, and we were looking at like buying an old farm and turning that into a wedding venue. And living in Madison, working in the event rental industry in Madison, I found those types of businesses and venues the market was just very flooded. And so we were like, what, let's look somewhere else.
Right? Like isn't it more of a corporate? It's the capital, right?
It is, yes. Madison's the capital of Wisconsin. So, I mean, a lot of opportunity, definitely a lot of business and events going on in that area. But, so there's that's one half that the market was flooded and is saturated. But the other half was thinking, what if this doesn't work out? If we don't get enough events to really keep ourselves afloat financially, what's our backup? And so we started looking for just other land in general, and came across a lot of campgrounds for sale in Wisconsin. But that was the idea, that if the events don't work out, then the campground will kind of be a good base financially.
So God or some higher power was like, don't do this. This is a bad idea.
Yeah, and that's kind of after 6 years, I've learned to just go with my gut. So back, 6 years ago, it was sort of I wasn't as aware of my gut feeling, but that's exactly what it was,
Yeah.
maybe this isn't the best way to go. So started searching for campgrounds, and I'll keep going back to our location, Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire. There's so much going on, and there's so much of a population where the event industry, the event potential to have guests and patrons is sort of there in our region.
Okay, so you buy it, you buy the campground, right? What was the plan for the campground when you initially bought it before you knew 2020 happened?
Well, that's kind of what it was to turn it into an event venue.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought you were going to buy an event venue and then you changed your mind. I apologize. That was my fault.
Yeah. So that was the plan, was that we were going to kill two birds with one stone. We actually bought the place in 2018. And that year, part of the agreement was said, I've never run a campground. So to the previous owner, I said, you need to teach me how to run this campground.
Okay.
And so that was
like, yes, we're excited to stay after we have all your money.
Yeah, well, they were open to it. So, that was a big part of the transaction. And so, that was kind of the plan, is take the first couple of years to kind of get our feet under us, get the campground kind of running smoothly, and then focus on events. But that was the plan. As far as COVID, no, obviously we were never expecting that. And
no, who was?
I mean, had no idea.
Maybe the people in the lab in China, where apparently it came from, now that we've studied this for years.
Right.
Sure. But either way, it was definitely one of those things where I had no idea what to expect. I did know, northern Wisconsin is a great place for camping. It's popular, and that's where people want to go. So it was definitely kind of a no-brainer. Like, this is going to be a good business, even if, like, I guess the one thing I would say we may have been expecting is, like, well, what if a recession happens? I was in college in 2008 when that whole recession happened or started. So that was kind of in the back of my mind of, like, well, what if we have a down year?
Well, for sure. Everything, I mean, economics, right? Goes up, what goes up must come down, et cetera. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so from that standpoint, it was definitely the idea that, well, tourism doesn't usually take that big of a hit in a recession or in some of an economic downturn. So that was the idea, that it would still probably be pretty good even in a down year.
Okay. All right. So you buy this, you got your plans all set. What changes in March of 2020? Besides, like, you're not all gung ho on events, right? That's the obvious one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there wasn't a whole lot that changed, other than we had to close our store. We have a small store with, souvenirs.
I guess I really mean, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I guess I really mean, like, what changed with your plans of, like, you have these plans to build this event center or create all this stuff. So, like, what business operationally forward thinking changed, I guess, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. So yes, events, we just sort of said, so that was our second year running the campground. So the events weren't necessarily, the first year we didn't do any events. We were just, again, trying to get our feet under us, running the campground just as a core business. And so the second year I had like one or two events sort of planned out, but not very well established. So in March of 2020, you just said, all right, scrap the events. We're going to have to focus on how to be, compliant with the CDC and all those types of regulations. But the business plan did not really change. We were very confident that, camping was a good business model for being able to social distance. We're part of the Wisconsin Association of Campground Owners.
Yep. No, Lori, she's a great lady.
Mm-hmm. And so they were very, they were communicating very well. Like, we won't have to close our doors. Obviously restaurants and hotels, all those types of businesses needed to close down because of COVID. So we were very in the loop of understanding that we're going to be fine. We're not going to have to close down anything like that. So there really wasn't a whole lot of changing the business model.
Okay, so fast forward, we got, you're building up your business over the years. You went through the COVID boom, all that kind of stuff. You said at some point, like, you plateaued. Like, what does that mean to you? Because it interests me from a business perspective. I'm a marketing guy too, right? But I think, like, there's plateaued as in number of sites. There's plateaued as in, I think I can't make more money or charge more. Like, what is it for you?
Yeah, it was really more just the fact that we had been growing consistently. We've been adding all these new features. We were raising prices more so just to stay competitive. But yes, it was definitely one of those things that we need to look at how we can make more money. What can we be doing differently? Our advertising, we really weren't doing any advertising at all.
No, you didn't have to during COVID, especially.
Exactly. So that was the thing, is we were doing so well and continuously growing that it wasn't a high priority to try and find extra forms of revenue, streams of revenue. So that's kind of where just my mindset as a business owner was, that I didn't see the necessity for anything like that. And then, so yeah, I mean, now that we're at that point, it's definitely changing my mindset of, all right, let's look at, see where are our opportunities.
So what do you, now that you've gone through the summer of 2024, right? And we'll talk about 2025 later after we hear Laura's story. But now that you've been through 2024 and known what this looks like and what maybe might possibly happen in 25, what are your plans for revenue there? Like, how do you adjust?
Well, I would say advertising is the big thing, because there's a lot of people, locals in Chippewa Falls, that everyone says, "Oh, I never even knew this place was here."
For sure, yeah.
So
they say the same thing about KOAs. There's the most famous one I remember was a KOA in Twin Falls, Idaho. I was at in 2012, I think. It was owned by Oscar Carranza. I think he just sold the park, actually. But like, he told me, like, I've been here, like, the park has been here for 50 years, and 75% of the people in town have no idea I'm here. And that's a bright yellow, like, KOA branded sign right off the interstate, right?
Right. Yep.
So
yeah. So that's what I would say is just advertising. We get so much in the mail about, hey, support this, or be a sponsor for this. And every year I say no. I mean, because we are a smaller campground, because we're seasonal, I'm always kind of cautious of putting money towards certain things, when
as you should be.
Yeah, it's always a question of, are we going to make it through the winter? I don't want to say sell out when I talk about having an arcade and having a pool, all of those sorts of things. Guaranteed that would highly increase our revenue. But because I do strongly believe in having a campground for kind of the traditional camping of, get the kids outside, get them learning about the environment and things like that, our revenue is limited. So, a lot of business owners would tell me, you got to just make as much money as possible. Well, that's not why I got into this, and it's not what I believe in. So as far as advertising, that's something where I need to just change my mindset to say, you know what, we can allocate certain funds towards advertising in order to boost our revenue.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do it the smart way, right? Like, and there's lots of people out there who are smart, but yeah, I mean, you go with the same mindset. I think it's the same mindset for any business owner, regardless of whether you're a small campground, a big campground, a company like mine, a news organization, whatever you do, right? it's the same mindset of you should always be careful where you spend your money. You should always demand, explanations and advice and reasoning and get second opinions and all that stuff, right? Like, obviously you need to be much more careful in your situation, in any campground that's seasonal, right? But then let alone a smaller campground. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something that a lot of campground owners who are watching the show, that we've talked to, have probably thought about the same way you have. Like, what do I do? This is new, right? For a lot of people, even if you owned your park in 2008, it's still new.
Right.
This is not the same thing as 2008, not even close. And so I think that's a conversation maybe we have after we hear Laura's story. Laura's been patiently sitting there waiting.
No, I've taken it all in. It's so refreshing to hear from other entrepreneurs, because honestly, I feel isolated in my business because there's so few people that can relate to what I experience and the business goes through, week in and week out.
Yeah.
The amount of decisions that you have to make, and just relying on your team and, maybe a few outside people, questioning, like, what are other people doing? It's just so nice to even hear from one person who has been on this journey similar to us.
If you're an entrepreneur and you don't feel isolated, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. I mean, because you are, you're in your head all day, every day about you live it, breathe it, drink it every single day. It's just why you're doing what you're doing. It is you. So
again, that's the difference, right? That's kind of I don't know. There's a difference to me between a business owner and an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. And again, like, both are amazing. Not saying one is better than the other. I just think they're different. But that isolation, like, I've been doing that for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I gave up all my friends except for 2, right?
Yeah. People are like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at the business. I'm working. I'm caring for this and nurturing this. And, I can't help not, because I care so much.
So walk us back. Where's that start for you? Where's that area? You've always had that grind, or did you discover it, or?
Always had the grind. My husband and I, met in high school, married, 2 kids by 20, both in college, trying to make ends meet. And got through school, worked in corporate America. And my husband had started a business. He's very entrepreneurial. He's very outside the box kind of thinker, very creative, but we're both in financial services. And just that journey is like from black and white, from where we started to 40 years down the road. But yeah, we're always juggling different projects, buying a rental house that was just, rated the worst house in the city, going at night with the kids in carriers and painting the walls, and just, that's been our life. So to start a business, it's just more of the same of who we are and what we've been doing. But we bought a property out in rural Ohio, so our kids could ride dirt bikes because our neighbors were losing it. Our boys riding their dirt bikes up and down the driveway. So
I don't want to interrupt you, but isn't all of Ohio rural? I feel like I can say that because I was born there.
If you're not from Ohio, it's farm country. But if you live in Ohio, it's all big cities. Our perspective is completely distorted. But
okay, sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, no. People in Cleveland did not like that. So we started coming out to the country, had the property, spent, massive amounts of hours with our kids out at this property. And then they went away to college and nobody cared about the property anymore. They're kind of moved on. So we got the idea to build some cabins, really.
Okay.
Down the street. And this is a vacation area. Sounds like similar to where Brett is, a state park.
Mohican. Yep.
Right. It's very popular for vacationers and campers and canoers and things like that. So we built some cabins playing off a zip line that had opened at the end of our road. They were kind of dipping into the industry. So we kind of played off that and built some cabins, and then got involved with the treehouse industry through Pete Nelson, somebody who paired us with him. And then we, looked at revenues, like, is this sustainable, into the future? Can we make this a viable business? Built a wedding venue on property. in the midst of all of this. So, here we are. That was 2010, started weddings in 2012, and continue to build tree houses and grow the business. But to address your question specifically about this year, so challenging with a changing environment. I feel like in the early years with growth and the growth of the treehouse industry, we were like new kids on the block. That industry had eyes on it like crazy. So we benefited from that. And then you have COVID, which we benefited from. And then things tempered. In the economy cooled off. So I guess this year, for the first time, working harder for every reservation and having to play with pricing, running promotions, and just babysitting that process week in and week out, watching our reservations and our occupancy percentages and looking, 4, 5, 6 months out and just strategizing on how you navigate this and maintain revenue. That's what this year looked like.
Let's have I want to talk more about your property and the unique things about it, and then I want to get into the not happy part of the show. We want to do that, yeah. But I feel like there's a lot of people, right, who are in the same situation that both of you are.
Yeah.
They're sitting here if you go back, and I've said this, I want to get to you before I talk too much about this, but there's never been an issue like this that has existed since 2011.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been cheap money. It's been an up economy. It hasn't been as up skyrocketed as COVID. But so I think probably, and I'm just making up a random percentage off the top of my head, but I would guess 80% of people didn't own a park in 2011 that own a park now. Probably. It's pretty high. It must be pretty high. And whether that's just inherited from you took it over from your parents and you weren't running it back then or whatever, I'm lumping all those people into it too. But this is new. I don't think anybody knows what to do. Well, some people do, but.
So you're saying the growth in the number of campgrounds and RV parks has grown. That's what you're saying?
No. I'm saying the ownership has changed. Lots of the campgrounds were here pre-2011, right? What I'm saying is the owners who owned them or operated them back then, I think probably 70 to 80% of those people were not running a campground pre-2011, so they don't have any idea of what to even do during any recession, let alone what I think we're about to go to. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Let's talk about your park. So you got this thing going, campgrounds. How did you decide to add cabins? You were connected with a guy, but why?
Well, the property was raw. It was wooded. There was no infrastructure, nothing. We were coming down with our.
So Brett's type of place.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no campgrounds, it was just raw land. We built a cabin for our family, but we weren't coming, we weren't staying there. It didn't get much usage, but we were just looking for a business opportunity because we were kind of what do we want to do with the next 20 years of our life? We were in our 40s. And my husband had sold his business and we're like, what next? So we just, he's like, why don't we give this a go? Why don't we capitalize on owning this property and see if we can develop it into something that's not corporate, we just kind of move away from that. So literally he's like, why don't we contract with some Amish? Because we're in the middle of Amish country, hired a crew and built 3 cabins. And we're just like, let's see how this goes. And I think we had always had rental properties since we were really young and managing, renters and how to book things and just kind of navigating that process. So it just kind of unfolded. We didn't really know what the future was hold. We were kind of getting our feet wet, and it was catching on, and we were getting a lot of reservations, and we were working on marketing. And my husband is a genius in that area. He was connecting with people in media, and we were on television shows, and it just kept going. We ended up, we were in the Wall Street Journal. Matthew McConaughey stayed with us. He was very astute at fueling that process. And as a part of that, it just was very serendipitous. We connected with the guy at the zip line who had been to Pete Nelson's treehouse symposium, or one of his workshops, and said, hey,
Okay.
Mooney's, I think you guys have a great property for a treehouse. And treehouse wasn't really in the vocabulary of the general public at that point.
No.
We're like, treehouse, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And so we invited Pete to the property and, walked it. And we said, let's give this a try. Let's build one. We couldn't rent it because people didn't understand the concept.
For people who don't know who Pete Nelson is, briefly.
Yeah, he is, he's one of the very early people in the treehouse industry. He has been building treehouses for decades, and was kind of like in the background. Ended up hosting Treehouse Masters television show on Discovery Channel, which catapulted him into international fame. We were contracting with him before the show, and then the show came on, and we ended up being on one of the episodes, which was another ironic, fateful timing thing that we, it was great. I had my cousin called the other day. She's like, oh, your episode was on Treehouse Masters as a rerun. And then you see the blip in your website traffic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Right.
I don't remember if it was Treehouse Masters or it was another show. I feel like it must have been. There used to be a guy who, and maybe it wasn't, there was a guy who explored like old buildings maybe or abandoned stuff, but he went to a treehouse in Crossville, Tennessee one time. I don't know if you've ever heard of this city.
No.
There's this massive structure that somebody built. It's like a city in the trees that's been closed down and condemned and fallen apart forever in Crossville, Tennessee. But I remember watching that. It's basically a treehouse, right?
Yeah.
But I remember going there and trying to get in, and I found out it was closed down. This is 2012, right? They had condemned it and nobody was allowed up there. I was trying to convince my girlfriend at the time to let us sneak onto the property. She's like, that's probably a bad idea. But I really want to go. It's a treehouse. Look how cool it is.
Yeah.
So needless to say, I never saw it. But that's what I think about when that's the first thing that pops in my head when I hear treehouse.
Yeah. Well, we'll reframe it. I mean, our treehouse.
Now we need to, right? Yeah.
Right. Our goal was always to make them as nice as possible. We wanted not the camping clientele. We wanted somebody who was going to spend, mucho dollars for a different type of experience. So, as we built each one is unique, styled differently, high-end finishes, that kind of thing. Granite counter.
You don't want the camping audience, that's for sure.
I mean,
it's really interesting. I've never thought of this until you just said that. But the camping audience has already spent their money on the RV.
Right. They do not open their pocketbooks for experiences like this.
It's not a slight on them, right? Everybody spends their money differently.
It's about a choice. Right. It's what you're into. And, that's fine. I mean, I do like RV camping, that's appealing to me. But if I had already spent, a lot of money and was committed to that, you want to get your investment, return on your investment. You want to be out there RVing. So we continued to build tree houses, one a year pretty much. And in the middle of that, like I said, built the venue and are hosting weddings, and, that's 50% of our business. So we were, juggling both of these aspects of the business, learning as we went, growing, trying to take advantage of the momentum of the treehouse industry and the growth and the interest. We've been really fortunate in so many ways. But again, I just feel like, if you're paying attention and you kind of are very intentional on, what your long-term goals are, and with the marketing, Brett was talking about marketing, making decisions on, it's very hard to spend money on marketing when you're not making a lot of money. And my husband always says, your sales people, just say you have salespeople, you should be focusing the most on them, because without them, you are dead in the water. It's, spending money on marketing and advertising. Yeah. So, even when we didn't have money, that was the money that we decided we were going to spend and hold off on other things. Because if the phone wasn't ringing, if people weren't on our website booking, we could never do what we wanted to do in the future. We just had to feed into that. I can't. It is quite a quandary sometimes when, you're trying to grow and you want to do things, but you got to spend big bucks on marketing. And we also we have a hospitality consultant that's been with us maybe 5 years, who does
Okay.
all our SEO and
Nice.
strategizing, and very much like I talk with him weekly about like where we are in retargeting and, you know, demographics and, you know, geography, like where we, you know, where our markets, what's our goals. And, but yeah, it is so important. I'm a little worried because, you know, when I Google us now, instead of like Google listing everybody, I get like an AI response. And I'm like, so my conversation with him is going to be, how do we get into that? Because we weren't listed number 1 or 2. And I'm like, how did those people end up in that AI search?
Yeah.
So
I know.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
again,
He'll know. He'll have a good answer, I'm sure.
yeah, he will. So, you know, I just want to stay ahead of the curve, and, you know, because you're right, environments change.
So I mean, we can get into some of this in a second, right? Like I'm interested in, okay, I think you're probably, and again, I'm just going to completely make up a random percentage number here, right? But I think you're probably 60 to 70% or ahead of 60 to 70% of other owners, in that you even have someone who's regularly talking to you about SEO and marketing.
That's
that
huge.
You've hired, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair, Brett?
Absolutely. I mean, especially nowadays, everybody would much rather book online. You know, would rather do all their research online as opposed to calling on the phone or doing word of mouth.
Yeah. We have office staff, but 90% of their job does not involve being on the phone. It's managing reservations, following up. We have add-ons, you know, romance packages, all sorts of things. We sell merchandise, you know, with a QR code in our properties, through our online website for our shop, and just, you know, that kind of stuff. But everything's coming through our website.
Well, so let's talk about ops for a second, because like last week on the show, we talked a little bit about the marketing and where I think that was going to go. And we can certainly touch on that and give some advice, right? But let's talk about ops, because you bring up an interesting point of ancillary revenue, I think here is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Especially important now with maybe a decline in reservations or price points where you're having to discount to keep it your volume.
So I'm a campground owner, whether I'm Brett and own a small park that's rural and I don't have a swimming pool, or, you know, I'm a campground owner that has a big resort, whatever I am, where do I start from Laura's perspective if I want to increase ancillary revenue?
I look at trends in the industry. I look what the people who are spending money, what are they looking for? Things like, we just connected with a private chef company called Cooking Genie. So there's a link on our website. So when somebody books a reservation, if they want, you know, a special occasion, or if they have a rehearsal dinner, they click that link, and, you know, we have a relationship with them. So we basically do nothing. We're a referral. But like I said, we also have merchandise that we, you know, started our merchandise store about 3 years ago. So we placed a QR code. We also have like mugs in the properties that they can actually take with them. We have romance packages that include, you know, champagne, chocolate covered strawberries we make on site, rose petals, those kind of things, because we have a lot of anniversaries and engagements at our tree houses and all sorts of things. You know, we're looking at a snack bar next. That's next on our agenda. So, you know, soda water, you know, bottled water, some crunchy snacks, some, you know, sweet snacks, that kind of thing. Just grab and go. You know, we'll run their credit card for whatever's missing. Those kind of little things. Pet fees was another thing that was huge. Our consultant suggested we do that because of the pet industry had grown, especially during COVID. Yeah. Everybody got a pet. Everybody wants to bring their pet. So we created pet-friendly properties, and now pet fees are a huge part of our revenue.
Well, I think this is interesting. Like, if you look at, like, I think the first thing is to understand the type of audience that you have. Who's coming to your property? Totally. Are they luxury, or are they, you know, families? Are they middle class? Right. Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Because there's all kinds of ways you can slice and dice this. I mean, there are actually probably somewhere that's not a big number, but there are probably people who are tired of being alone and quiet and maybe go camping to have noise. Yeah. And so I feel like the Yogi parks could sell like a noisy kid package instead of a romantic. Like, we'll just put the noisy kids near Sarcasm a little bit, right?
Yeah,
but,
no.
But like, but the point is that whatever if you think that you're not romantic and thus you cannot offer a package, that's the wrong mindset. You may not be able to offer the romantic package, but there's something, if you put your mind to it, that you can figure out.
Yeah. It's just, again, being creative and thinking about opportunities. And the business owner, the entrepreneur, knows his business best. If somebody poses a question to them, say, let's do treehouse tours, because so many people, they want to come in and see one. How would that interrupt your regular reservations? Is that viable? Does that make sense from a practical standpoint? You just keep chipping away and going through that list of like possible opportunities. And every once in a while, you get to one that's going to work and make sense and is worth your while revenue wise. So I guess it's really just paying attention. Sometimes I get great ideas because I see it at somebody else's business, or I'll travel and I'll go somewhere and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, look what they're doing. We can do that.
I think this is worth exploring, Brett and Laura. If you want to do this with me, I'm gonna try to do this a little bit more in 2025, because this is where like I geek out. Is with have you guys ever played with AI, ChatGPT?
I just downloaded Perplexity on my phone yesterday.
Perplexity is a good one, the AI search engine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not.
Okay, so what I want to do here, and this will blow your mind too, Brett. Like, I think I want to offer a solution to people who are watching the show, right? For what we're talking about, because everybody's different. And like, you're going to get off the show, you're going to hear us talking about like Laura and her romantic packages, or luxury, more higher end glamping property. You're going to hear whatever, Brett's ideas are, but it's not going to be your campground. And so first you have to figure out what that is. So let's randomly together choose a campground. So let's first, Brett, pick a state. Can't be one you're in.
Sure. Let's say Missouri.
All right, so we're going to go down to Missouri, and then we'll just zoom in here, and we'll just type campground. And then, I don't know, we got to get one that's like high enough rated here. We'll just do this, whatever Longview Campground is. Hopefully this is a good one, all right? Just to prove that you can do this with that makeyourdayhere.com is their website, really?
Wow.
Oh, Long Lake Park. All right, we need a private campground. That's the issue. All right, can you guys still see my screen, or did I lose?
Yeah, I lost you.
Yeah.
All right, hold on one second. I'll get you back in a second. I was trying to switch tabs, so I keep choosing like campgrounds on my screen without websites. So there's a pro tip number one. You definitely need to be online and have a website. All these are Minnesota or Missouri state parks. Let's try RV resort instead of campground. I promise I do know how to use Google Maps for those of us who are watching. Let's see. I'm looking for one with a lot of reviews. Like 80 reviews, Lakeview. All right, Cozy Corners RV Park. Please have a website. Okay. So we're going to go here. I'm going to share my screen again, and then we will just do this. RV park near Truman Lake. Okay, so this is our use case here. You guys can see that? Cozy Corner RV Park?
Nope.
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, I got to turn that on. Hold on, I keep forgetting this. So there we go. Cozy Corner RV Park. So this is, where are we located at here? Doesn't even have their address on here, which is another issue. So contact us. Clinton, Missouri. All right. So like whatever campground you are, this is the idea. So take the website URL of it. I got to switch screens here and go back to ChatGPT, and then we'll stay there for you guys and we'll show you about this. Hold on one second. All right. Can you guys see ChatGPT now, or do I need to flip that on? I need to flip that on.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. One day I'm going to figure out how to run technology. It's going to be wonderful. So you come in here, right? ChatGPT. For those of you who don't know AI, right? You can sign up for a free account at chatgpt.com. And it's literally just typing. You just have to have a conversation like you would with a human. You type or talk, right?
Yep.
But the input is equal to the output. And so you can come in here and say, I own the following campground and want to understand the 4 types of buyer personas that might Stay with me. Be brief and descriptive. And then you just paste your website URL in there, and it's going to browse your website. And it's going to come back and it's going to say outdoor enthusiasts, family vacationers, retirees and snowbirds, and weekend warriors. All right. Now you can get better with the prompt that you put in here, but generally speaking, for the speed of what we're trying to do as an exercise, right? You can change this up or whatever. The key is browse your website, look for these types of people, right?
Yep.
And then you say, okay, expand these into 4 detailed and comprehensive buyer personas. Okay. And then it will look at what it did before, and it will, instead of searching the internet this time, it will build you the demographics and the goals and the pain points and the behaviors of an example subset of outdoor enthusiasts, of family vacationers, and everything that it needs to know. Now, as it goes through here, this is kind of learning. Like as it types, it's learning what it's typing about. And so it can reference everything above it. But let's just let this finish for a second. So we've got retirees and snowbirds. And this is good information that you would have spent hours researching before, right?
Yeah.
So you've got your 4 things, and then you say, all right, great. I am trying to think of 20 ways to increase ancillary, can I spell this? Oh, I did. Revenue at my campground, comma, I want to focus on number 4 primarily, and use unique methods, not ones everyone else is using. And then it's going to give you 20 ways. Based on just the buyer persona number 4, the weekend warrior. So we got themed weekend packages, adventure gear rentals, curated food and drink experiences, experience bundles, digital detox experiences, customizable itineraries. Maybe we should have just done 10. We could have probably driven my point home. But anyway, these might be good for somebody. Exclusive fire pit experiences, social media photo spots, private movie screenings, luxury camping upgrades, local partner collaborations, on-site mini markets, good idea, pet experiences, personal adventure guides, pop-up wellness services, seasonal decor, nighttime adventures, interactive games, adventure subscriptions, that's interesting, and personalized merchandise. And so this is an idea generator for you. This is taking months. You don't have this time if you're a campground owner or a business owner, right?
It's true.
Like you don't have this time, and that's why it never gets done. But now you do. So let's plan out number 19. And it will give you all the details. It will tell you everything you need to do. Like, again, this is not like a copy-paste thing, right? But even this, I mean, I'm not saying those prices make sense, but maybe they do. Right. And so if you're looking for ideas and ways to increase ancillary revenue, this thing is free for you. Yes, I'm on a paid version right now, but that paid, well, I just increased it to it. But anyway, it costs $20 a month for access to this GPT-4o, which is their latest regular model right now. And so you look at, like, again, assuming 100 subscribers, 50 bronze subscribers does that math make sense? Yeah, $2,400, $2,450. Like, I mean, again, that's not a lot of money in this specific instance.
And if you implement 1 per year, it pays for your subscription. I mean, like, you can start building off that.
Yeah,
exactly. One per year where you're kind of figuring it out, doing trial and error. And then once you have that one, that feature, then you go to the next one.
Yeah. I mean, and so I think we spend and this is part of my struggle, right? Is I'm a big AI geek, marketing person. And we have this show, and I want to talk about all the things with campground owners, but I know that we can do a better job of communicating some of these tools and resources available to people, because you just don't have time, and these things are free, but you need to see how to operate it. You need to see how to work this thing, and how easy it is, right? Is anybody scared about how difficult what I just did was?
I'm fortunate that I have a son who is part of our business. He's 28. and he used ChatGPT and to help come up with the name of our last treehouse.
There you go.
Just whittled away. I mean, it literally, we had the name within, by the end of the day, just looking at once we narrowed it down to like 3, then we picked one. And
Sure.
I mean, it's just the applications. I mean, for something like that, even it was fairly simple, but it really brought in a lot of great options that we never would have thought of,
And if you don't know how to do it, like how else can I use ChatGPT to improve my campground?
Right.
Like, and it will answer the question for you.
Yeah.
So, here's your SEO optimization again, right? Like the ChatGPT is only going to know what's been done so far. But guest experience enhancement, revenue generation, staff training and management, operational efficiency, right policies, rules, cancellation policies, local partnerships. Like, I mean, this is the amount of sheer time that this thing will save you as a campground owner. I mean, it's just, and I know I'm a geek, but it's shocking to me. Like once you see this, you should be all over this.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
I feel like
this.
The whole AI, just ChatGPT, any of these platforms, I feel like in the past, like I'm going to say like 6 months, I've been shot out of a cannon. Like I heard AI like last winter, and something has recently happened where it's literally everywhere I look now. And
because the companies have been building with it in the background, the early adopters have. And now the enterprises are ready, which is part of what's going to happen in 2025. We talked about that last week. Like you're going to start to see layoffs.
Every platform that we work with, Ring Central, Cloud Beds, I have in the past couple months gotten communication from them talking about AI on their platform and how it's, what it can do. Let's talk about it. Let's get you informed. Where again, that wasn't happening even 6 months ago. It's like everybody, it's just like this massive push forward.
Because they were all building it.
I think the reason it took so long was there was definitely a stigma against it when it first kind of came out, was starting to kind of become more accessible. And now, even just now, I never even thought to use ChatGPT just for research.
Yeah,
they don't. Nobody does.
Yeah, when you present it in that way, then it makes so much more sense. Like, yes, research would have taken you weeks, maybe months, to get all of those answers within minutes, seconds.
I think it's important to retrain my brain and my habits and like my go-to, like redirect them so that going through that exercise is part of what I normally do, because your daily routines and things like that and how you approach problem solving, you have a routine, you have a method that you've developed. As a human, I feel like, especially as you get older, just saying, you know what, I got to start using that. I got to start integrating that on a daily basis into what I do every day because of the benefits. Just your example is just a massive example of.
Well, it's the benefits to you, but it's also like you talked about with the AI overviews in search.
Yeah.
This is going to change the way people discover your property too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be cognizant and aware of what happens if I'm just like you said, not number 1 or number 2 in that AI overview. Right. Because eventually Google's already said all the blue links are going away. They originally said by the end of this year. I think they've missed their timeline. Well, technically they haven't, but they have.
It does still come up. And that's where all of my focus, our business focus has been, how do we get up there? How are we on the first page? That's
for 25 years. That's all anybody's focus has been on. Yeah. Nobody knows how to function in this world unless you're thinking about it right now. And it's here. It's not even going to move fast. It's here.
All right, Brian. So what is the answer? So like, what should our business be doing right now so that we are a part of the AI answer on
focusing on SEO? Like we could talk about like hours and hours and hours of this stuff, right? Like we've done, like I run a 35-person agency. We've been studying this for 2 years, prepping for this. But like SEO right now is the thing. Like what works on Google really well which, to be clear, 80% of campgrounds are not doing even what you're doing, Laura.
Well, I find it hard to like, I mean, we're all in hospitality, but my business looks very different than Brett's business. But what's interesting, our bottom lines, we might end up at the same place. It's just, like you might end up at, your net income the same as mine, but you get to it by a different method. You know what I'm saying? Like
However you get there is
really
fine.
all we care about. Like how much money are we able to, net every single year? That's really what it's about.
Yeah. However you get there is fine, right? There's no, well, there probably is a wrong answer is what I was going to, there probably is. But figure it out, you got to do it wrong to do it right. But people need to, I just don't think people are prepared for this, right? And you're not even talking about ranking. Like forget about, honestly, like Laura, like you need to pay attention to the ranking, but forget about the ranking because the answer isn't even going to be in text. Like, I mean, if you look at this, right? Like if we go back to ChatGPT for a second, like the future of all this information is not text. The future is this. Tell me a little bit more about what you just said.
Okay. I'm sorry. So you're okay. Yeah, spoken word interpreted.
Let's dive a little deeper into how ChatGPT can specifically enhance your campground. 1. Marketing and guest outreach. ChatGPT can help.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to listen to the whole thing, obviously. But that's but everybody's going to discover campgrounds through an actual thing that works. So Siri just announced this morning, by the way, on Apple. They announced it back in July, I think. But there's an update rolling out literally today where Siri on your iPhone, you can type to it now. And as a fallback, it will fall back to ChatGPT when it doesn't know the answer to something. And eventually that is going to be 1 billion people that never search on Google again.
Right. Well, and back to your question, Laura, is what do we do? I think you've already done it. You've identified that the issue of how Google search results come up. You've identified that you're no longer at the top of that search result. So, now that you've identified it, then it's just adapting to, okay, well, how are search engines working now? And Brian, to your point, if Siri or Google Assistant, whichever program is changing, then just us as business owners are adapting to that. We identify that's where the industry, or not the industry, but the search engine industry, just the world in general, is going. Us as business owners need to adapt to that and kind of implement those industry trends.
I mean, I think the thing that concerns me most is the speed at which this is moving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like when computers came online. It's not like you can slow walk in and take 10 years to do online reservations. This is a thing where, like Laura's example, is a perfect case study of where you're not visible right now.
Yeah.
That's a big issue, especially if we're also headed into a down economy. You need to pay attention. And if you don't have the time to do this, you need to get somebody who does.
Right. The gentleman who, like in the winter months when you're slow, reservations are down, when you pay that person every month, I'm like, ouch, but his role is so important and he's so specialized. It's not anything that I could ever do. Well, nor would I want to spend the time to learn how to do it. It's just, it's so important that we maintain. We just did a big Black Friday sale. We started doing it last year because post-COVID, our winter reservations went down. We're like, oh my God, like we got to get back there. So we started a whole Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaign. He said, normally in December, last year we backed off a little bit on our SEO spends and things like that because it's a quiet time anyway. He goes, I'm going to suggest we not do that this year because he's like, we need to keep feeding that based on what's going on.
For sure. But here's the thing, like there's not even a line item in 80% of the campgrounds budgets for SEO.
Yeah. Brian, do you think I want to bring in branding in the conversation because
And by the way, like I know we're like at
We're
1
almost
hour, so if you guys want to drop off, or like if anybody needs to go ahead. Otherwise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to touch on it
Yeah.
because your commitment to branding and developing your brand and things like that, I feel like a lot of things go with that, with how you spend your money, what kinds of things you do. Like we developed a logo, and spent time and effort in that. So that we could open our store, because we wanted to develop a brand, which will in turn determine your market.
Yep.
So as a part of that, we could have not done a lot of those things 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago when we started the business. And we probably, ultimately, because all those things cost a lot of money. You get money, but it's also costing you money. But the ultimate goal was to have your opportunity for revenue growth to keep getting bigger and bigger. Maybe those new things that you're bringing in as part of who your brand will be, what your brand will be. Maybe the margins aren't as great as a treehouse, reservation. But I feel like your decision as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, if you want to start going down that road, all of these things come with it. Otherwise, it's okay just to stay in a certain zone, but I think there's limiters to that. So I just think like
brand is number one, right?
Yeah.
Everything
Yes.
has
Totally.
always been about brand, to be clear, and it even more so is going to be in the future. But brand is not just a logo. Brand is your tone of voice and your font and how you treat customers and what the guest experience is and what your marketing is and what pictures you use and everything.
Yeah.
Everything is brand.
But if you want to grow a brand and develop a brand, I think the types of things that we're talking about, like ancillary revenue and market placement and search optimization, all of those things. Like I feel like that is almost like the catalyst for us. It was. Do we want to be a visible brand? Do we want to be viewed as this? What kinds of things do we need to do to get there? But
like right now, it scares me, like, because I would never want to be someone who is trying to start a new brand now, because and I'm not saying that I'm right. Like I'm not discouraging anybody from starting a brand, to be clear. Like if you haven't started one, start one now. But starting today versus starting pre-AI was much, much easier because now there's 150,000 times more noise out there. It's harder to get visibility. And now you've got all these, they call them LLMs, right? The AIs, ChatGPT, who have been trained on all this data already. It already knows all your competitors and all the things in the area. So how do you get your brand into a conversation, into a model that's already been trained on knowing everything about your competition when you didn't exist as that brand? I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's much harder today than it is ever been.
It seems like muddied, like you don't exactly know, like you start a business, there's a traditional path that everybody always
not anymore.
So yeah, well, okay. Then I'll call myself lucky. You too, Brian.
Well, I kind of disagree with that, Brian. I think if anything, AI could potentially help with that.
To be clear, I'm just saying it's harder, right? Like I'm not I can't do it.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just utilizing kind of the technology and the resources at hand for a business owner. I mentioned the Campground Owners Association in Wisconsin, but then the Chamber of Commerce having those types of resources and even AI to say, okay, what are my opportunities? What market am I neglecting or just missing out on? I think that could be really where, all right, I have this brand or I have this idea for a brand that where am I going to get the most bang for my buck, in order to identify and to target those additional, revenue sources.
But yeah, I mean, using that as the answer, you're right. But most people, again, we're back to most people have never touched ChatGPT.
Sure.
Right. especially.
Well, but I think that's the conversation we're having is we're identifying that if we want to be successful, if we want to create new streams of revenue, those are the types of resources we need to be open to and to utilize.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge, and it's coming fast. You have to learn it. Like this isn't.
And you need to stay proactive.
Yeah, but that's so hard, right? Like it's hard for me, and I have 35 people working for me because I don't have time. Like I had a huge conversation with my team yesterday about ops. I'm like, I can't do day-to-day ops anymore.
Right.
Because if I do day-to-day ops, what like the people who want to talk to me, like they don't have time to talk to me. I'm the strategy guy.
Yeah. Right. We're all making decisions every day on where we spend our time, and again, depending on how much, what your budget is, how much you can afford to bring in other people. I mean, most of it falls on our shoulders as business owners, like we need to be everything to everybody, but after a certain point, it doesn't make sense because our value added in other ways is much more, there's a lot more potential there. So I get, again, those are like some of the struggles I think that we all go to. We all know that we're supposed to be doing these other things, but weeks go by and months go by and like you never quite get there.
For sure. That happens to everybody, right? It's human nature.
Yeah, it is.
But
it is.
I mean, I think you're like, honestly, and I would never say this because I'm not a big proponent of debt, but I think you're at the point where like this is something to go into debt for.
Yeah.
Now to get somebody working on SEO.
No, I agree with you. We've already had that discussion. It's an investment in the future. It will pay for itself over the long haul. Stretch that debt out for 10 years or whatever, 15 years, and just do it now so that you don't fall behind.
Well, and I'll go back to creating a brand, Laura. You were talking about how do you justify that or spending the money there. I look at specifically for creating a brand. Yes, it's going to be a lot of upfront cost, but once it is established and once you kind of have a good hold on what your brand is, you can carry that through on all of your future advertising. And it's going to be worthwhile because then 5-10 years down the line, you can really use that. And it's sort of just a plug and play type of advertising and way to sell, new customers, new guests on what you're trying to create.
Yeah, I agree with you. Once it's in place, it's in place. Like, and then like if you're going to advertise in a magazine, you just send them your pack. You're like, here's my logos, here's my branding pictures, here's my my text or my I forget what I'm lose my word, but here's the wording that I want you to use. Yeah, you're right. It does that. It's like an investment in the future. Again, it's like a capital improvement,
Well, right. And, Brian, you talk about how it's worth it to go into debt, but as a business owner, you understand that's only temporary. You're always looking at the ROI. You're going to get it back eventually as far as it just paying off.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, with ChatGPT, like I think you can build most of a brand with ChatGPT.
Just ask the right questions.
I think you can if you ask the right questions. Again, I think maybe depending on your skill with AI art generation, you may not be able to have that finalized logo, but that's pay somebody $100 on Fiverr or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Generate some ideas.
Generate some ideas and then go to that person and say, because now instead of paying somebody $5,000 to develop a brand, now you're paying somebody $200 and giving them mock-ups and sketches already of this is almost exactly what I want, or the AI can't spell the word, so just change this letter or whatever, right?
Yes.
And so you can get there. I think, I think the biggest challenge is distributing the brand. That's what I think I perhaps should have clarified better when I was having the conversation of today. It's muddy, right? It's easier than ever to create a brand. It's harder than ever to get a brand discovered.
Yep. Yes.
Well, that's kind of where I was coming from with using the Chamber of Commerce, who has all of these statistics. They have access. I'll speak specifically for Chippewa Falls. the Chamber of Commerce has access to all of the, the Google tracking and, how the tourism the tourist guests, I suppose, tourists, where they're going, where they're coming from, where they're going after they leave, all of these sort of statistics and information that, other organizations have access to. So finding those partnerships and finding out who has access to that sort of information will help a lot. I'm not saying it's not difficult, Brian, to your point, but at least trying to find those resources is where, going back to I said proactive. That's the business owner's job to be proactive and find those resources.
For sure. All right. I did say we were going to go forever, but I just realized I have a calendar meeting in 4.5 minutes. So I guess I have to go.
Better go. Thanks.
But tell us where they can find out more about your property, Laura.
www.themohicans.net is our website. That's the best way. Google Treehouses Ohio will also maybe come right up at the top.
Maybe, possibly. It will next week after you talk to your guy.
Thank you. I'm going to talk to my guy.
Brett, where can they find out more about Pine Harbor?
Yep. So it's pineharborcampground.com. You can make all your reservations there, find out more information. We do have cabins. I neglected to mention that. So 4 cabins and a park model. Pineharborcampground.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you being here for another episode of weird, disjointed, whatever we did without any of our recurring guests that didn't show up. So
all right.
Appreciate you being here, and hopefully everybody has a wonderful Christmas, Happy New Year, all that kind of jazz. And
Likewise.
We're just going to cross our fingers and say everybody who's going to build a brand and use ChatGPT is going to be just fine in 2025.
Yeah.
I don't know that I believe that 100%, but I believe that you're not going to if you don't.
Okay.
So
we'll give you that.
Let's go.
Right.
All right. See you guys later.
Great
Have a good
meeting
day.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of MC Fireside Chats with your host, Brian Searl. Have a suggestion for a show idea? Want your campground or company in a future episode? Email us at hello@moderncampground.com. Get your daily dose of news from moderncampground.com. And be sure to join us next week for more insights into the fascinating world of outdoor hospitality.